Today is Friday, January 8th, 2021, which means it's Derelict Friday. Hello, fiendlings, how the hell are you? If I sound terrible, it's because I feel terrible. I have COPD, a catch-all term for things like emphysema, and had a pretty nasty event occur just like last November. I'm on meds, and they've given me new long-term care inhalers to keep my lungs from swelling. Not to mention my good friend, the antibiotic for the pneumonia probably hanging around in the bottom of my lungs. So yeah, 2021 is off to a great fucking start. Why do I have COPD? 30 years of smoking. So, if you're a smoker, don't be a moron like me. Quit now and save yourself a fuck ton of money on future prescriptions, medical care, and let's face it, cigarettes are expensive. The money you save will make your mind boggle. Trust me. Also, I'm going to make this statement here and now, and hopefully it'll be the last time I ever have to say it. Please wear a mask in public. It's a pain in the ass, but if someone like me gets COVID-19, we die. Protect yourself, protect others, not because you were forced to, but because it's the right thing to do. There, I'm done with my PSAs and all that crap, which means, where were we? About to see what's up with S&R Red? Yeah, that. Ugh, get ready, folks. Shit's about to get strange. Be safe, have a great week, and we'll talk again real soon. Here's episode 6 of Derelict Trident. Chapter 8. Carb had already muttered something about the Taulbee Express, and Callie hadn't quite managed to mute her mic in time to stifle the sound of her giggle. Unprofessional, immature, and it destroyed the tension just enough for Callie to regain focus. With her feet and one hand maglocked to the SV-52's hull, she had to rely on her cams to look for threats. Her other hand held the grip of her rifle, the weapon maglocked to her arm. Dickerson and Carb did the same, although Dickerson was locked beneath the craft, while Carb was on the starboard side. As they reached the edge of S&R Black's bow and Taulbee began changing the craft's attitude, she found herself holding her breath. Images of a massive cloud of pine cones, entire fleets of starfish, and an impenetrable darkness swallowing S&R Red flashed through her mind. She shook the thought away. The lieutenant had already scouted the ship, and it was clean. Nothing waiting for them, nothing trying to hide in the twilight. Callie sighed in relief, but it was short-lived. As Taulbee brought them to Red's starboard side, she saw the burn marks along the hull. It was one thing to see them over a cam feed while knowing you were still inside S&R Black and protected. It was another thing to be looking at them through your own cam feed when the evidence of exosolar life was a mere meter or two from you without any metal between you and it. She caught sight of sharp dents and deep scratches along the bottom of the starboard hull. The starfish had been here, or something like them. Perhaps something even worse.
"Almost there, Corporal,"
Taulbee said. "Copy, sir," Callie said. "Squad, get ready." The lieutenant brought the SV-52 within 5 meters of the cargo bay door, the craft's powerful lights completely illuminating the main door as well as the emergency airlock 5 meters to aft. This close to it, the cargo bay door appeared even more ominous than it had via the SV-52's cam feed. From her angle, the pried corner of the cargo bay door had deep punctures and dents. Whatever had created the damage had been strong enough to not only pierce the thick Atmos steel door, but then rip it outward far enough to peel down a corner. The rectangular door had buckled in its frame, leaving a long, widening crack of darkness trailing from the bottom to the top. "Sir," Callie said, "I think I know what the dents in the hull are from."
"Go ahead, Corporal."
"The creatures may have sunk their talons into the hull to get leverage." A moment of silence, the length of a breath expanded like pulled taffy to seem infinite.
"Copy,"
the lieutenant finally said.
"We're in position, Corporal."
"Aye, sir. Squad, dismount." She demagnetized her gloves and boots and pushed herself from the hull. Callie drifted through the few empty meters of space at a slow pace, her helmet cam feed rendering the damage in fine detail. She knew she was right. The creatures had slammed their taloned limbs into the Atmos steel, burying them deep enough for their free arms to tug and pull. Or cut. Callie shivered. When she was mere centimeters away from the hull, Callie reactivated the magnetics and reached out her hand. The jolt resulting from the suit's attraction to the hull was relatively slight, but still made her cringe. "Losing my touch," she said aloud. "No, you're just nervous," a voice said inside her mind. Her father again. Sudden movement on her HUD windows drew her attention. Dickerson and Carb had both reached the hull and secured themselves. "We're in position, Corporal," Dickerson said. "Copy." Kelly shuffled to an outset panel a meter from the cargo bay. She placed her free glove on its surface and pulled. The panel lifted and slid aside, revealing a small display. Kelly hit the button for manual, and the display flickered. A crank folded out from the hull, and a red flashing word appeared. "Lieutenant?"
Go ahead.
Taulbee said. "The door is too damaged to open. We're not getting in through here,"
Copy.
Taulbee said.
Emergency airlock it is.
"Acknowledged, sir. We'll move further aft to the airlock."
Copy. Moving to cover.
Kelly connected to the squad channel. "Dickerson, Carb, we're moving."
Aye, Corporal.
Scaling the hull was a simple maneuver. All the Marines had to do was disconnect their magnetics, activate a suit thruster for less than a second, and float until they reached their destination. Simple operation, yes, but it left her feeling helpless as she traveled across the mangled cargo bay door. The agonizingly slow pace allowed her a peek inside the bay through the peeled-back corner. Her lights briefly shined into the abyss, showing her just a glimpse of the deck inside. She exhaled a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. She hadn't seen any corpses in there, but between her angle and speed, it had been impossible to see the entire bay. A few seconds later, she maglocked herself to the hull next to the emergency airlock controls. "Dickerson, detach and cover."
Aye, Corporal.
The large Marine demagnetized his boots and gloves and gently pushed away from the hull. When he reached a distance of 2 meters, he activated his thrusters to stop his momentum. With his rifle held ready, Dickerson aimed at the airlock door.
Ready.
"Carb?" Kelly asked. Carb had positioned herself to the far side of the emergency airlock, keeping one foot maglocked to the hull. She held an angle with her rifle covering the entrance. If something tried to come at them from the ceiling or the left side of the door, she'd be able to pin it down without risking friendly fire.
Ready, boss.
Kelly popped the panel and exposed the manual controls. Just as with the cargo bay, she folded out the crank and powered up the unit. The display flashed red twice before a green bar appeared. "We have power," she said. "Opening the door."
Acknowledged.
Dickerson said. Her heart rate rose a notch, and she could practically feel her bio-nannies hovering over her adrenaline gland, ready to punch it into overdrive. Before she had another second to think about it, she hit the button. The energy stored in the crank activated the hatch controls, and the outer door opened.
Inner door still closed.
Dickerson said. "Activating the override," Kelly said. After transmitting her block code to the control system, the display flashed green before changing to yellow. The two colors blinked on alternating cycles. It was the control system telling her she was about to depressurize the cargo bay. Had there actually been pressure inside, that would have been a concern, but the ripped and torn cargo bay door made it pretty clear this part of the ship was completely without life support. She hit the button again and waited. If the cargo bay had been pressurized, detritus and unsecured items would have come flying out of the bay. Instead, nothing vented and nothing moved.
Clear.
Dickerson said, his helmet lights lancing into the gloom.
Clear.
Carb said.
The bay looks pretty empty.
Kelly pushed up from the hull and used her attitude thrusters to float to the actual door, her rifle covering the opposite direction of Carb. A glare from her suit lights bouncing off Atmos steel briefly triggered the helmet filters, her vision darkening slightly. She had prepared herself for corpses, broken crates, smashed deck plates, and void knew what else, but she had never thought the cargo bay would be completely clear. "Dickerson, you first," Kelly said. He didn't respond, but a short-lived plume of vapor erupted from his suit thrusters and pushed him into the airlock. He continued floating into the pitch-black cargo bay, his lights swaying back and forth. "Go," Kelly said. Carb used her gloves to push herself inside. Kelly followed in her wake. The cargo bay, as large and cavernous as it was, felt small to her when the ship had a full loadout. 2 skiffs, an SV-52, and several tons of equipment, supplies, and munitions usually made the bay feel cramped, especially when they held company briefings. But Red had no skiffs, no crates of munitions, and most disturbing, no SV-52. She panned her lights around the bay. Rifles were missing from their racks as well as 3 backup suits. Kelly frowned.
They're missing all the support craft,
Carb said.
And extra suits,
Dickerson added.
Could be they made it out of here.
Kelly nodded gently, but she knew better. Could also mean they didn't have a full loadout when Colonel Hayes mustered them. Dickerson groaned.
Right.
He said. Kelly walked to the hatch leading into the ship. It was closed and locked. Apart from the door, any damage?
Yeah.
Dickerson said.
Look at this.
She brought up his cam feed and took in a sharp breath. He was looking at the cargo bay door from inside. The area where the corner had been peeled back had blackish marks and dents. Firefight, Kelly said.
That's what I'm thinking.
Dickerson said.
Yeah, look at that.
Carb said. Kelly switched to her cam feed. Dozens of Atmos steel flechettes floated near the ceiling bulkhead. No sign of the creatures, though, Kelly said. And wasn't that a damn gift? The Marines of S&R Red had fought something, but it either left in one piece or never entered the cargo bay. With the hatch connecting to the ship's interior locked and the ship without power, there was no way to know if the airlock had been damaged. SFMC airlocks have been designed with auto failsafe mechanisms to prevent accidental depressurization, even when a ship was without power. She shined her lights on the hatch seams and saw a line of crimson. The bulkhead beyond the airlock has no pressure, she announced.
Damn it,
Dickerson said. Lieutenant, Kelly said, we're going to enter the mid-decks.
Copy,
Taulbee said.
Good hunting.
Aye, sir, she said. The further inside the ship they traveled, the more its EMP shielding would cause problems with their comms. Okay, squad, I'm taking point. Carb, you bring up the rear and cover our 6.
Want a claymore?
Carb asked. Kelly winced. It was the first thing she should have done. Yes, I want a claymore behind us just in case one of those things is hiding in here.
Aye, boss.
Dickerson, same as on Mira. You're tall and can see over me.
Copy,
He said.
Stun rounds?
Stun rounds, Kelly agreed. We hit a suit, it'll paralyze but not kill. We hit one of those things, it'll turn to crumbs.
Hoorah!
Dickerson growled. Let me know when you're ready, Carb,
Already placed, boss.
Carb said. Here we go, Kelly said, and opened the hatch. Chapter 9. Taulbee had moved the SV-52 to hover over S&R Red's engine array. It wasn't a bad place to park, allowing him to scan both the space between Red and Black and keep an eye out for bogies coming from the opposite side. Until Mira called for an extraction or a threat appeared, he had nothing else to do apart from watching Mira's rapidly deteriorating cam feed. He'd never seen an S&R-class ship in complete darkness, and after seeing what Mira's squad was exploring, he hoped he never would. No light entered the ship outside of the torn cargo bay door and the perforation on the other side of the ship near the personnel quarters. And now that Mira's squad had left the cargo bay, there was no light at all. The corporal had chosen to keep the cargo bay hatch open so they had a redoubt for the main corridor, a safe place to hole up until extraction. It was a good strategy for this situation, but hardly foolproof. They were still vulnerable from the bridge deck, as well as engineering. If Red's crew hadn't completely locked down the ship before their battle, anything could be hiding inside the ship and waiting for a meal. What battle? From what the squad's cam feeds showed, it didn't look like the creatures had made it through the cargo bay door, although the Marines had obviously fired at something. Pine cones? Maybe. Maybe a smaller pine cone could have come through the damaged cargo bay hatch, but would such a small creature elicit a firefight? Taulbee ground his teeth and tightened his grip on the controls. Of course it did, he said aloud. The first time he'd seen one of the creatures, he'd not only been terrified, but damn near frozen in place. Firing on them was his first reaction. Any Marine in the cargo bay, after watching it tear open a corner of a large, thick Atmos steel door, would have opened fire at once. Well, after they got over the shock. He tried to imagine how his counterpart on S&R Red, Lieutenant Husum, would have reacted to being attacked by the creatures. He doubted Husum would have frozen for long, but his experience also told him it didn't take long to die. Not with these things. The SV-52 and skiffs were missing from their berths, suggesting Husum had mustered his Marines and headed out to fight the creatures. But that didn't make much sense either, did it? We're thinking about this wrong, he said. S&R Red presumably left Trident to tow the pair of KBOs headed for Neptune. Depending on their size and mass, 2 items of interest Black wasn't even sure of, Husum might have been forced to take 2 skiffs out to fasten the tow lines or thruster packs. So which was it? Good question. Taulbee entered block time and scanned the surveillance video at high speed. He found the portion showing S&R Red's belly. Using the block's processors, he zoomed in on the ship's spindle fastening point. A single thread of cabling dangled from it, as if the thousands of strands of Atmos steel had completely unwound and snapped. Or dissolved, Taulbee said. Did they connect the spindle to one of the KBOs? And if so, what happened afterward? He left block time and returned to the reel. The cam feeds hadn't changed. The ship was still there, and somewhere inside, Kellimore's squad hunted for anyone left alive. Taulbee doubted they'd find more than corpses.